right, let's go back then to the story. Of course, the JSC in deliberations at this time with regards to what we saw taking place this week. That is, of course, the selecting of the country's new Chief Justice, or the country awaits for the new Chief Justice to be named. The Ministry of Justice and Correctional Services has released a statement saying that they have noted what appears to be a deliberate distortion of the appointment process of acting judges of the Constitutional Court. It says that as and when vacancies arise in the courts, the Constitution dictates that such vacancies should be filled by the President and the Minister respectively, subject to a particular process. It says it is within this context that consultations occur between the Chief Justice and or the Judge Presidents of the Superior Courts with the Minister. For more, let's cross live then to SABC News reporter Hasina Gori, who is in Sandton for us, where those deliberations are currently underway by the JSC. A very good afternoon once again to you, Hasina. I'm sitting here with the media statement that, of course, was just released a while ago. And it seems to be talking to what we saw yesterday. And there was a slight altercation that we noted between the Minister, Lamula, as well as EFF leader Malema. Is this then directly addressing that? It did seem as though the Minister was a little bit uneasy as Malema was talking about some sort of memo or letter that was sent. Give us some clarity as to what exactly is going on at this time.
Good afternoon, Flo. Yes, as you mentioned, we saw in the last few days a lot of questions coming out around the judiciary, as well as the way appointments are done at the different court levels. We heard those questions not only being put to Acting Chief Justice Zondo yesterday, but also to the Gauteng Judge President Danton Mlambo the day before, asking, this was a question that came from Commissioner Dalim Pofu, asking him how he got to be acting on the Constitutional Court bench, which he is currently doing. This was appointed sometime last year ahead of him being nominated to the Chief Justice position for these interviews that we currently waiting on right now. So that was a question that was put to him on Thursday, and his response was that he had received a letter or a call from Acting Chief Justice Zondo, and that is how he became an acting Concord judge. Then also that question, as you mentioned it, that altercation that we saw, but Raymond Zondo really responding and reiterating a few times the process that led to Acting Justice Lambu being on that bench. But I want to bring in the Ministry of Justice here, who released that response, to explain to us their response and what exactly took place. So thank you so much for speaking to us. Let's start with, we saw that letter being read out, the altercation that happened between Commissioner Malema as well as the Minister as well. Why did you feel the need to respond to how acting judges are appointed, to the Constitutional Court?
Well, firstly, this is the 25th anniversary of our Constitution coming into effect just yesterday. We marked such an important day in the history of our country. So when there's the public discussion around what constitutional provision enables what, I think it's important that the ministry is able to provide the public with that information. And so what we've put out today basically explains the appointment of acting judges to the Constitutional Court, but as well as to what we call superior courts. And that would be your high courts or any court that has the status of a high court. And insofar as the appointment to the Constitutional Court, the Constitution is very clear that it is the Minister who recommends, with the concurrence of the Chief Justice, or in this case, the Acting Chief Justice. And so what we saw yesterday and also sometime this morning is this attempt to create an environment as though there was some nefarious attempt or a conspiracy to make a candidate more appointable than another by making them or recommending them that they act on the Constitutional Court. And nothing could be further from the truth. As you have correctly highlighted, yesterday the Minister immediately made the correspondence which he had with Acting Chief Justice Zondo available for the commissioners to peruse and consider, and in that we have the correct timeline into which all of this happened. And what the record reveals is that the nomination or the recommendation rather of President Judge Mlambo to act onto the Constitutional Court was done well before anyone knew when the nomination process would take place or who the nominees would be. So that really dispels that conspiracy, which is trying to be propelled from certain quarters. And we must be very forthright in rejecting any attempts to undermine the confidence in the judiciary. Of course, what we've seen is that this attempts to malign the minister. And politicians would be fair game, yes, but ultimately what we want to ensure is that we don't have any conspiracies that seek to undermine the judiciary in a willy-nilly fashion.
This seems to also suggest that there's judicial capture or manipulation by the minister. So I just want to clarify. So according to the Constitution, the Chief Justice and the minister may consult, or the minister may consult with the Chief Justice on appointments of acting Concourt judges.
The Constitution makes the president the appointing, first of all, and the minister the person who recommends it. But there is a condition as to how that recommendation must happen, and it is clear that that must happen with the concurrence of the Chief Justice. So essentially here you have a three-way conversation with three people with very distinct roles insofar as the appointment of someone on the Constitutional Court. Insofar as an appointment of an acting judge in the High Court, the Constitution says that the appointing authority is the minister, and he makes the appointment after consultation with a judge president or of a particular court. So that's very clear as to what the role of the minister is. So it's a constitutional duty that the minister performs in both instances. On the one end, he recommends, subject to a concurrence. On the one end, he appoints, subject after consultation. And of course, concurrence and after consultation have separate legal meanings, which I wouldn't go into now. But that is the process that is required by the Constitution. And anything less than that actually would be unconstitutional.
We've also seen attempts by some of the commissioners to misalign and really set a certain cloud around some of these candidates that have been interviewed, going for this specific position.
Well, I think a lot of people have opined on what's happening at the JSC, and it's always been the case that JSC interviews have garnered great debate over the years. And so people will make up their minds about what they think about the JSC interviews, and we'll leave it to that. But if some people want to take it up legally, as we've seen in the past, the JSC responds in the manner in which it would deem fit, and they will speak for themselves in that regard. But safe to say that the JSC interviews always garner great debate, and it's part of the course. And most importantly, though, the JSC itself is a constitutional body and performs a very, very important duty. So it's no surprise that its work would be scrutinized in the manner in which it's been scrutinized.
We've also seen a lot of attacks on the judiciary in the recent few months, but also we heard from acting Chief Justice Zondo that he faced threats, following the commission as well as other judges. What has the ministry has been done to kind of, dispel these attacks on the judiciary, and also public perception that the judiciary may be captured or misaligned?
Yeah, so that's why we put out the statement that we put out today. Is we need to ensure that, of course, we can criticize the judiciary, but when we do so, is do so with facts and in a specific style of manner to ensure that what we critique is their judgments, because that's how the judiciary speak to the nation, is through their judgments. And where they go overboard, we've seen that the JSC is able to hold them accountable, as we would have seen in recent times. An apology was published, and that was because the JSC process took place, and ultimately some judges were then called upon to be held accountable. We've also seen, indeed, a number of unfortunate statements that have been leveled at members of the judiciary, and rightfully so. A number of criticism has been leveled at people who have done so, because what we do expect of everyone in society is not to hold the judiciary with kid gloves, but to criticize them about their judgments and their work in a manner that is acceptable in a constitutional democracy. And if we do so in a manner which undermines the judiciary and ultimately creates a perception that this very important branch of the state is not what is made out to be, then ultimately we malign the Constitution itself. And so we've seen that, and we've rightfully, I think, in many quarters rejected such spurious attempts. But also we're saying, this does not mean that the judiciary cannot be criticized. But when we do criticize them, let's criticize them on their judgments, and in a fashion that does not degenerate the institution of state.
Thank you so much. That was the Justice Ministry spokesperson, Crispin Peary, speaking to us here in Sandton, Johannesburg, as we wait for those deliberations to conclude some time today. We've known that the 21 commissioners have been sitting from 9 a.m. behind closed doors, deliberating over that 4 candidates, some of the top senior jurors in the country, over who should be nominated and who should be the next Chief Justice, really responding to some of the allegations that were levelled out of the ministry, as well as suggestions by some of the commissioners that the position of, or the appointment of acting justice were done in a way that was judicial capture, or that the judiciary was manipulated to serve a certain candidate. So really trying to dispel that notions that we've seen levelled at some of the candidates over the last 4 days. But for now, we're still waiting on that press briefing that we were promised once the deliberations have ended. For now, they are still really busy. We haven't seen anyone come out or in of that room in quite a while. They last had come out for lunch, so they are still very busy deliberating over those 4 candidates. We're uncertain yet whether they'll be nominating just one name or giving a list. And from what we understand, that all 4 candidates have to be vetted, as well as then recommended back to the president, who has then the prerogative and the privilege of appointing whosoever he seems fit from the 4 candidates. But Flo, that's it for now. Back to you in studio.